Jim, welcome to Seattle. Thank you so much for joining me live this morning.
Thanks, C. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Oh my God, we have been friends for so long, and I'm just so excited that you're here because we're talking about a really huge conversation and a topic. And when it comes to brand and strategy, I'm just like, who else to talk about this topic than you, Jim? And Jim, I don't know if you remember this, but
I do. We did that together. Yes.
this is how we met. The Priority credit card launch in 2018 for the Southwest brand, and I have such amazing things to say about you because I really feel it, and I was able to witness firsthand, thankfully, and that is what you brought to the room was so amazing. It was not only leading strategy, you're just so, it was like how you work is very adventurous. So like you're never lagging, you're always like on it, and you have these incredible ways to package the idea that is required for any meeting. It's so incredible. So like whether it's digital solutions or 360 strategy, really elevating the brand. And so like I really appreciated our conversation mainly in fintech specifically, and we had like this incredible, I just still remember this conversation about how we were in the hallway and we're talking about credit cards for children and like for them to learn financial responsibility. And now, you know, a decade later, there's a whole bunch of those solutions available in the marketplace.
Yeah, that market has just exploded.
Yeah, it really has. So let me share a little bit about you because I know so much about you, but I want other people to know who you are. So you have done a lot, and you are a seasoned veteran in this arena of not just advertising. It's really from like Fortune 1000. I mean, you've been everywhere. So one of the key things that you've done is the Popeyes chicken sandwich, which drove like $1 billion in system-wide sales in year one, which is awesome. Like this is what strategy does. The other thing that you did is launching 7-Eleven's 7 Rewards program, now with 55 million members. And then you did Toyota Prius, the first hybrid vehicle to reach US mass market adoption. And you're like, oh, that's not enough. And so you relaunched AT&T into the consumer marketplace, which bundled phone, internet, TV services. And you're like, let's go to the credit card. So then you went into Capital One and you're like, you know what? Let me pull up this awesome strategy, which is their iconic What's in Your Wallet campaign. And out of all the 25 years you've been on the agency side, I'm so happy to be able to witness this side of you, Jim. You've opened up a new shop named Signal and Strain with your good friend Raj. I'm going to say his name totally wrong again. We practiced this so many times. I practiced this so many times and I totally messed up. Let's go. What's his name, Jim?
Raj Iyer, and he is the CEO.
Yes, Raj. And it's amazing because I love how you are based in Austin, Texas, as you are right now. And your strength has always been in person. Your strength in being able to be a high collaborator. And you really make magic in the way how you work. So I'm just so happy to know that other people are able to see all of that magic in like full blown. Like I'm like, Jim is going unlocked now.
It's funny you say that about me, see, and I think that about you. Like you're a conversation dynamo.
Oh my God. You're so kind.
Ditto.
Look, I think the biggest thing is that you're from New Jersey, so you definitely have this incredible, like you have this credible personality. So it's like you kind of have been based in Austin, but man, like when you move the room, like this is the thing, Jim. Like I think you're an excellent communicator. I think you have operational excellence, and you really have been able to learn so many of these different hats along the way because you weren't like because I work with you, like I know that you weren't just a strategist. Strategy was like the byproduct product or outcome of what you did, but holy crap, the business side of it, the new business side of it, the client service side of it, bring it together, talking to the people in between, kind of being the Rosetta Stone between idea and execution, all the way to the end of the project, and then taking whatever that bookmark was of that last project and pulling that through to elevating that brand to the next level. You don't build on quicksand. Like, that's what I respect about you. Some people do, okay? You don't.
The ones that don't sink don't build on quicksand.
Okay, so Jim, let's talk about strategy because it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite topics, and as is yours. And I think a lot of the audience and the listeners here, if you are a executive, if you're new to business, but you've kind of been in your lane, whether you're like on the more technical side or you're in the other black hole, which might be finance, right? Or you're on the legal side, and you always heard strategy as a verb, or it feels kind of intangible. Jim, can you help to explain in a very simple way the value of strategy? Because regardless of if you are a Fortune 1000 executive or if you are a VP, or you're in an SMB, or you're doing things on your own, why is strategy so important?
Sure. And thanks for that. Is like the kindest introduction that anybody has ever done to me. So I'm blushing. So forgive me for that. But let's dive in. So let's break this strategy thing down, because strategy is one of those words that you say it and it's like a $10 word. Right? It feels fancy. It feels like up there in the ether. It feels like something that regular people don't do. And I kind of want to, break that mold a little bit, just because it's actually, it's hard and not that hard, right? And people perceive it to be so open-ended. And I think what's happened over the last bunch of years especially is that if you look around, every job title has, or every job description has strategy in it. So you could be a social strategist, you could be a growth strategist, you can be a product strategist. Like, okay, well, what does strategy mean anymore? And all those things are valuable. Those are important skills, and each of those are lanes that have grown like massively. It's a whole unique skill set, but it's kind of like a doctor who is a specialist, right? Who understands that area. And I think what's happened in recent years is people have lost track of how to put all the pieces together. And Michael Porter, who is like the grandfather, if you will, of strategy, what he always said was that strategy involves everything, right? The notion of strategy is being integrative, and it's all the things together. So when I think about what strategy is, I just use simple terminology. I think strategy is how do we win, right? How are we going to do that? How is that going to happen? And it sounds like a simple question, but when you start peeling it back, there's so much more there. And so when you think about how are you going to win, there's like a whole art and science to how do you kind of create kind of meaningful value for the company, for its customers, for its stakeholders, all of those audiences. How do you create meaningful value, and how do you separate yourself from competitors? How do you do that in a meaningful and sustainable way? It sounds like, it doesn't need to be this big heady thing, but it's something that actually involves every person in an organization. It's not something that you kind of drop down from on high and here's your strategy, right? It doesn't quite work like that. I mean, maybe it can to some degree in small businesses, right, that are founder-led and you've got that vision, right? But I've seen so many strategies not work because people think it's this thing that doesn't involve everybody, right? They think it's something that you just drop in the center of a table and everybody, you go execute. And when I think about what strategy is, I think of it more as a through line. Yes, we're heavily involved in the front in kind of building that how do we win, but then it's a group effort, right? And it
Yeah.
involves all these different pieces. So how you do that is much more involving than just what's on a piece of paper.
I love how you talked about that because you're so right. It's like, you say it so nicely and it's very, very well articulated and such an intangible thing. And you're totally right. It's like a $10 word. And people don't realize it's a multi-million-dollar thing.
I think people confuse it with being a good operator, like operating and managing well. And that's actually a smaller part. I mean, you do that better once you have the strategy in place.
Bingo.
Right, right. But there's a lot of time when I think business gets very focused, and it should in certain ways,
Yeah.
gets very focused on the short term and incremental wins, and how do we pile those up, right?
Yeah.
How do we have some shiny objects? How do we get incremental wins? How do we keep the machine going? But if you keep paddling like that, and you know this analogy as well as I do, see, if you keep paddling or keep running on the hamster wheel and don't know where you're going, you're just going to get to where you don't want to go faster. Right? So being able to clarify and codify where it is that you actually want to get to and how you're going to get there, it's kind of central to doing everything better.
Yeah, you're really pointing on vanity metrics,
Yes.
right? In a nutshell.
If anybody doesn't know what C's talking about with vanity metrics, sometimes we talk about vanity metrics as how many exposures that we've gotten, right? Or things that you effectively buy a lot of the time, right? Is media metrics, and you can say, I got X eyeballs, I got this number of people in, but really that's not growth. That is doing what you're doing effectively. And there's a big difference between, doing what you're doing efficiently. And so there's a big difference between effectiveness and efficiency. And often people mistake operational efficiency and buying those eyeballs for actually succeeding, right? And that's a part of the equation, but it's just a small part. You've got to orchestrate a whole lot of moving parts to make this work.
Yeah, and to visualize that just a little bit, I think it's like the separate things of what are you amplifying? Because I feel like so we come from the world of paid advertising, right? Like we are very much like they have an unlimited amount of money and they're like, do something because we can't think about something great, right? And we're like, yay, okay, great. How about this, right? We're fighting about ideas, right? And it's awesome because that's what makes someone stand out from the rest. And if you keep on doom scrolling and you're like, oh my God, but what about him and her and da 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 da, and you're just spending so much time and energy on someone else and on the competitor and not focusing on your customer and already being a brand and you have customer data. It means to say your people are transacting, whether that's a can of soda or whatever it is, right? It doesn't really matter what it is, but if you have a sustainable business, then you have actually a lot of insights that you can derive from that and amplify from that. And what you're talking about really helps me to pose this question is when we talk about high collaboration in strategy, what do you actually mean by that? And can you help to describe that? Because what I want you to help articulate here, Jim, is that if you don't do strategy all the time and you're like, oh, let me just buy strategy and then walk out for a second, right? And be like, oh, yep, I'm just gonna, from the top down and we're just gonna do it. It's not exactly helpful or useful. And then that means that you actually don't really know what that looks like. But at the same time, if we can maybe simplify it in a way of, I'm not gonna expect you to eat kale every day, right? Like if that's just not in your lifestyle, right? Like there should be no expectations. And so I think strategy is the same way. If you're not actively practicing the value of it and you're not living and breathing in it, I don't know how the value isn't going to be on the table.
Right. And strategy, I mean, again, I like to simplify it, right? I like to break it down. And part of the essence of strategy is what do we do and what do we not do to win, right? And so I think its greatest value is actually as kind of a decision-making matrix about where you focus activities, right? Where you place your bets. Because it's kind of funny, the world, especially the digital world that we all live in, right, and have lived in for the last 20 or so years, that world has been so much about this idea of certainty, right? This idea of I'm going to get numbers from this, and it's going to show me how effective, and I'm going to use those numbers to be able to demonstrate to VCs, to customer, to whomever, the effectiveness of, or at least efficiency of what it is that I am doing. But the reality is not all of those numbers make sense. Right? If we step back from that, and strategy helps you understand which of those actually matter and which of them don't to get you where it is that you're going. But I want to get more back to the question that you asked, because I think it's a really important one. To me, again, strategy, the process to me is the same, whether it's a large company or a small company. That doesn't change, right? But I think the core of it is making sure that you're thinking holistically about the organization and its different parts. And not everybody has that purview. In small companies, like if you're a founder, if you're at the early stages of a company, there's something beautiful about that, because you could bottle the energy and passion and the idea that you've got. So much of that as a company grows gets lost along the way, right? And you're looking for that, you have that purest form of what you're trying to be. And that's what, as a brand strategist, that's amazing. That's you're looking for what is the nugget that started all of this and made it what it is today, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of it. And that's why small companies are so interesting and founder-led companies are so interesting. The problem is a lot of those owners and founders don't codify it. They think, I'm going to be here forever. I'm going to drive this. Right? I'm going to drive this machine. It's my company. Or if it's a small group, it's our company. We're going to make all the decisions, but they don't think about creating the structure around it that lets it scale. And ultimately, you hit a point in virtually any category where you have to scale to be able to drive forward, right? And unless you have captured that lightning in a bottle in some way, it's really hard when you hit that point to be able to amplify it out into a larger organization. And this is why so many companies have such struggles with growth. Not just, not failure to grow. It's actually when you are growing, how do you keep up? Yeah. And so strategy becomes that touchstone that creates the clarity of where you're going and why you're going there, that helps you orchestrate all of those moving parts and not get lost. So I think I would put it that way.
Yeah. I love when you talk about the win, like it really boils down to how do you want to win? And when it's, because you and I love sports, we love sportsmanship, sportsmanship and sports, we're huge fans. And winning is part of it, right? And so we all want to win, and but you have to keep on losing until you try one more time to win. And that's the betting on yourself part. And I love what you're saying is that lightning in the bottle, because, the question really goes back to more of a business question, right? And the strategy linking to the business objective. And this is where you just totally I'm like, oh my God, I love this topic. And it's because it's really up to the business owner. It's like, are you a lifestyle, business owner? Do you want to grow? Do you see this company going beyond you? Where are you going? And how do you want, how big of a impact do you really want to have? Do you have an exit plan and strategy? What does win mean to you? Like, do you understand that you can do multiple companies in your lifetime? Do you know, there's all these different kind of ways to go in a very capitalistic society. Like, you don't have to be like, oh my God, this is my baby. Like, if you can detach from it a little bit and really look at it as a brand, how to really focus on that customer and taking your head out of your ass, I think, frankly, and really seeing what. Yeah. And it's like, what does the company need? What does the business need? And then I think going into like our favorite analogy of the oars, right? It's like, how do we row the same way so it's good for the company, and what roles are necessary for that company? So then what strategy is necessary for that company to win?
Yeah, and each company is different, right? So that there is an art to this as well as the science. I think a lot of focus, and rightly so, gets placed on best practices, right? That you're going to learn from other businesses who are doing what you do, right? That's going to help you grow and do things right, right? The challenge is if everybody's doing the same thing against the same customer group, and sooner or later you kind of run out of runway.
Yeah.
Right, and it becomes a chase to the bottom where you're fighting it out on usually very rational attributes at that point, but you're only talking in most cases to an audience that's about 5% of your total potential audience. That was shown in work by Byron Sharp in How Brands Grow, which is a very useful book on this topic. It suggests that based on the science, only about 5% in most marketplaces are actively in the market at a given time. So what that means is when you're thinking about best practices, often everybody is focused on that same 5% and how do you drive them into the basket, right? Mm-hmm. I think the challenge right now is that 95% of people out there, how do you predispose those people coming into the market, or who may not be there yet, but will be, to choose you rather than having to fight it out on everybody else's terms. Right. There's a huge opportunity there. So you talk about a brand as a moat, right?
Yeah.
It is a moat that protects that unique DNA that is your organization. What you've done is codified that. You've created structure around it. And it effectively kind of does the job of making you so distinctive or so connective for people that you're a default choice. And the right answer at the end of the day isn't, do you do demand work or do you do brand work? The right answer in nearly all cases is both of those help each other. Right?
They have to coexist.
But oh my God, our industry continues to debate them because everybody's fighting over budgets, right? So it's our demand, our brand stuff, these are not enemies. These are actually complementary in an effective system.
Let's talk about that for a second, a bit more. So when it comes to objection, I think about whether it's in the security industry or IT or brand or all these like different areas, and this budget conversation always comes up, right? But when I think about it and I'm looking at all these kind of businesses and I'm reviewing it, I'm just like, man, at the end of the day, I can see where the assessment really is. And I think the assessment is either as a business that you have to spin all these wheels, whether you like it or not, right? Or maybe you just don't have the skills equipped or the knowledge equipped to be running in that way.
Yeah.
And so it's the unfortunate, I think, hard truth, right? But as much I think as there is hope of like, okay, we can try, but if you really are not putting in the effort, and it doesn't mean that you have to be an expert in knowing something that you don't know, but you need to know enough that you are great at delegating, hiring, having that spot filled in a way to allow yourself to free yourself up to do the things that you need to do on your strengths. And so when it comes to the performance marketing or brand marketing, it's just or even having any any time in the calendar to even think about it, to revisit it? Do you even know the answers to the questions? That's what I think is the biggest thing. If you can't answer the basic questions of your brand, like that should tell you everything. That's like going to the eye doctor and be like, I can, you know what I mean? Like that should tell you everything where you're at.
Well, and building on what you're saying, I mean, something that large brands know that small brands often don't, or kind of nascent companies as they grow, is the power of kind of, let's call it like, it's like finance, like compound interest.
I love this.
Right?
Yeah.
There is a power in consistency in the way that you show up as a brand.
Yes.
Right? That I think there's sometimes those that are do this less every day think that, you know, all you have to do is strike, you know, some cool thing, right? Something that people will pay attention to, and every once in a while that happens, but it's a bit like striking the lottery,
Right.
right? But if you have a brand that you are clear on and goals that you are clear on, you know, I'm going to add marketing plan to this, right? Because that's also part of the equation. But if you have all of those kind of working together, I think what you aspire to is creating a flywheel, right?
Yeah.
Where all of the things, it's not just one thing that kind of caught this one person's attention and that's great. What you're trying to do is to create this flywheel effect that everything drives back to everything. Right. And so the next time they're exposed, and the next time after that, and the next time after that, you've created a recognition of who it is that you are and what your organization is about. And then you flex the variety and make it interesting to kind of, you know, connect in. But it's interesting. This goes back to, again, the work. If what you're really trying to do is to make you an easy choice, make you a default choice, so that when that person is in the market and ready for it, it's a no-brainer that they're choosing you, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then it's just being easy to buy, which is
well, let's talk about that for a hot second,
Yeah.
because we're going into tofu, mofu, bofu, right? And so, like, and you know, these frameworks of like, they're like, okay, yeah, you know, there's the awareness, and then there's, you know, they get the framework, but I think you and I are people who are really in that funnel, right? We really live and breathe that funnel in a way of like, okay, how to get a customer that is not a customer yet, that's in the market, whatever. And you're totally right, the 5%. And I think this is where, like, I'm going to bring it up again. Yeah, a lot of people have their head in their ass of like, oh my God, they're always thinking about our brand. No, they're not. They're really not.
Your brand is a speck in a universe of things that they are doing during their day, during their week, during their month. That is, there's a great cartoon that's about this, and cartoons never are great when you tell them and don't show them. But there's a fantastic cartoon by the Marketunist around this, which is a marketing cartoon, and it says, you know, somebody is up there looking at a pie chart of somebody's life and the things that they're spending time on, and they're like, you know, where is our brand on this pie chart? Like, we're the #1 brand of pickle relish, right? Why aren't we in their minds? And the fact is, life is upside down right now for virtually everybody. Our country and our world has an epidemic of anxiety and too much going
That's a
on.
good way to put it. Yeah.
You know, our days are not consumed by one part of our world, right? No matter what, you know, we still have to sell pickle relish.
Yeah.
Right.
People still eat pickle relish. Yes.
Right. But we have to find a way to fit our thing into their world, because the world isn't waiting for us to come out with our thing.
Bingo.
Right?
Yes.
So the more we understand about them and what matters to them and what life looks like, the more we can attach our thing to something relevant to them, something that means something, and that's ultimately memorable for them, right? That's the key, is kind of capturing their attention, their engagement. What are they going to remember?
Yeah, something exciting too.
otherwise you're only as good as the next moment, right? And the moment is
Right.
past, right? So
Right.
you really have to build that, again, some degree of consistency in how you show up. And that's actually where the brand and the marketing program play their strongest roles,
Yeah, the
is
how.
creating that breadcrumb trail for folks.
Yeah, I love how you talk about it in that way because the consistency, I mean, gosh, for just everything is it really is the consistency. It's like these revenue generating activities, are you being consistent with it or not? And even on a corporate office point of view of like, are you even budgeting, allocating budget for that one, right? Let alone the actual programs that come along with that. You always know like if someone is a serious, sophisticated a player, I think, when it's already allocated. And from there, it's more about, are they going to experiment the 20%, to see how does that work with the current 80%, the other 80%, and then with the trends in the market, and they have such a high pulse, and high touch on the market, then they're able to pivot very quickly. And pivoting as in not changing their brand, but changing the tactics that amplifies the current pillars of their current strategy. And I feel like you're totally right that these small businesses or SMBs, compared to the larger brands, I am very aligned with you that it's not about you have to be a big business because at the end of the day, we're all vendors. And
Right.
so whether you're just a big vendor or not, it's more about, do you have customers? Do you have a customer flywheel? Are you out of the every custom order? Can someone buy another can of soda? I'm just using a can of soda. That's something easy, right? Can they buy a pencil again and again and again? What is that buying process? And are you consistent in the messaging? Because, yeah, people are not thinking about you all the time, but when they are, when they're landing, when they have a need, are you even showing up as top three? And then if you can show up the top three, that's probably the first step. And then the second thing is the actual consideration, putting more oomph into that and more putting more gas or fuel into the fire, right? And then for them to actually increase that conversion rate. It's like, why are they not buying? Why didn't they add that to the cart? Like, I'm getting all these traffic and hits and attention, but what are we like rubbing them off in the wrong way in such a way that they're not going forward? But that's where experimentation happens. That's the fun part, because then you're supposed to talk with your customers and ask them why they bought in the first place to give you the insight, right? It goes back to the customers. Like, I don't know, talking to people is not a bad thing, Jim.
No, I think we both know it's an incredible thing, right? It can kind of spring all kinds of thoughts that you might not otherwise have thought of. I think one of the things that is trickiest with talking to customers, and I think this is an important thing, is that I think when we see a lot of research out there, or even when we're talking with customers ourselves, I think we jump to whatever it is that they say is right. Listen to the customer. We're all taught to listen to the customer, and we should. But it assumes that people know their own minds and the things that are operating. And I think the reality we know from neuroscience and other places that, we're emotional beings and we justify with logic in most cases, right? So and this goes back to why storytelling is so important, actually, right? Because storytelling is something that our brains are hardwired to kind of relate to and understand on an emotional level. And it tends to cut through a lot of things in the marketplace, right? We kind of immediately grasp onto stories. We're taught, I mean, it's both innate and it's taught from a young age.
Right.
And if you think of storytelling for just a second, because it sounds fluffy. It sounds like a fluffy thing. With storytelling, it's like a kid thing. But the reality is there's some really important like brain and business things that sit underneath that word storytelling that are just unequivocally true, which is that humans, just being humans, we relate to hearing things, experiencing things in certain ways. And it goes back, we look for consistency, we look for things we recognize, and sometimes that is a storytelling pattern.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is a narrative, right? All of those things can be super useful in kind of building a way of helping people relate to your organization just beyond the facts. And the facts are important too, but again, the magic is when it all starts to work together as a whole flywheel. It's, where you make that move from being pieces and parts to all of a sudden those pieces and parts are an engine.
Yeah.
That's the exciting moment.
What do you do in situations where it's very clear from your experience, because you do a lot of high level strategy, lots and lots of high level strategy, and okay, sorry, I'm trying to explain it. So like if someone's like, if they have an objection on strategy, right? What are the top objections do you usually hear often in the boardroom? And what are usually your responses for that?
Sure. Great question. One of the things I hear most often about strategy is that in order to do strategy, do we have to take everybody's focus away from what it is that they're doing, right?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. But wait a minute. The word, again, a $10 word, it sounds so big and scary and open-ended. Like, this is never going to be over. It's going to cost us $1 billion. And no, it actually doesn't. It actually, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? And so we can get done the things that we need to get done to move the day to day, and at the same time do strategic work that helps move an organization forward in a longer range scenario. You have to today think short term, midterm, long term all the time, right? Those things have to work together, and I think a lot of organizations, and I understand why, there are short-term needs, the next quarter's numbers, the KPIs, all of those make sense, but you can do all of these pieces at the same time, and strategy sounding so big and sounding so open-ended is notoriously hard to buy. I like to break it down to 3 simple circles, let's call it that, like a Venn diagram.
Okay.
I think of foundational strategy, like, answering that kind of core question, who are we, where are we going, what are we striving to do, and what characterizes that. I think of it in terms of the second bubble being kind of marketing strategy and strategic planning. Okay, how does this play out? How does this look like on a map, on a road map, on a kind of a plan basis? And then I think of, let's call it creative content strategy, those kinds of elements. How do we show up? What does all that mean, and how do we produce it? Right? And strategy gets involved with all of those things. It's not just in that first circle. There are actually lots of different flavors of this. But when you have those 3 core pieces working together, because strategy means nothing. It's words on a page unless you can activate it. Right? That's the hardest part. The hardest part isn't doing it, it's activating it.
Well, okay, come on, Jim. Let's put it this way. For all the VCs and all the investors who bet on, an idea, right, and a startup going literally from scratch to something, it's literally the same concept, right?
It's the same concept. Yeah. That's a great way I think people can relate to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great one. Do you have another objection that you run into often?
I think it relates to that first one. It's that as marketing organizations, or even just organizations as a whole, when doing marketing, because of that confusion, I don't know how. Like, it's very difficult to think about buying strategy. Like, right? Again, it feels so big and open-ended. How do I involve a person who does strategy either on my team cross-functionally, or how do I involve that person externally and bring them in a way that makes sense, doesn't upset my team, all of that kind of thing. And part of it is being a collaborative person, right? You're looking for somebody who can bring people together, not break them apart. But if you're most teams right now, just how the market is fragmented, you're scrambling. Like,
Yeah.
right? And doing any kind of
Churn.
marketing, the churn, it's a really difficult time, and it only gets more so, right? There's more content out there, more video out there than ever before. All of these things are just growing, and the people that I know who are working in marketing, particularly at a director or director's teams level, those people are scrambling like crazy right now just to keep up with all the parts. And then you have AI flowing in, which is wonderful on the one side, right? Because I can do more, and it is. So I can innovate, but it's a whole new world opening up of things that you can do, and it's furthering this idea that it's all just too much for folks. And
Shall we talk about AI, Jim?
happy to, but yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on AI, both good and bad, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you're talking about the churn and, the scrambling of the directors at the moment, I mean, we're going into a very hot season. This fall and winter is always a crazy season. It's either you're going to make it or you're not. You're going to capture the flag or not, right, per se. And then we all revisit the budget in January and February. Right? It's the same cycle every single year. Everyone talks about like it's a surprise. It's never a surprise. So I don't know why it's always portrayed in that way. But anyways, I think before going to the AI part, I would love to tap into agency and brands. And so I think the working relationship between agency and brand, you have been in so many agencies. I have too. We've both worked on so many different brands. But what I'm most interested in hearing from you is what you being now a co-founder, equal legal partnership in this new agency that you have put together with Raj. I want to hear from your point of view, like what are you taking from the lessons that you've learned, and what are you going to be doing differently? What is your viewpoint on how a brand and agency working relationship should look like, and what does the value look like today?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. Thanks for asking that. I think there is a broad palette of choices right now that any organization can make about who it is they want to work with. The great thing about the marketplace right now, if you think of it in terms of strengths or equities, is the amount of talent that is out there in the marketplace, often independent, right now is actually pretty massive. Right. And I think probably a lot of companies are feeling that, like, whether it's how many resumes are showing up or how many, this conversation could go a lot of different ways, but I want to make sure I'm answering your question. So I think that right now that landscape, there's room for a lot of different kinds of players. Some large companies need large agencies to mirror their hierarchical structures, right? And that's the way it's always been and the way it may always be for some companies who need a lot of that. I think the interesting thing right now that we're seeing is a lot of the large agency networks, holding companies, et cetera, are having some struggles right now. Like they're shedding a lot of people into the marketplaces right now, and I think some of those agencies are losing some of their, let's call it personality or uniqueness or distinctiveness, because what's happening in my view is that it's like a ghost kitchen and restaurants. And the holding company is increasingly, the back end is increasingly the same product across a number of different outlets. It's almost like a franchise model, right? Even though the agencies may have different names and that sort of thing and different cultures, the reality is the core capability that's sitting underneath that is increasingly the same, or at least similar. Slightly different variations on a set of flavors. But what AI is bringing into the equation, I think, just like in a lot of fields, is creating a different opportunity for smaller agencies. I like to, somebody referred to us the other day as a special ops team, and I like that. I'm not a big fan of war analogies in business. I think they're different things, but there is something to it, this notion of being a special ops team where the decision making is not so distributed. And especially in strategy, where you have if you have people with experience who have done this a lot, and both Raj and I are longtime strategists with a lot of different kinds of organizations in different fields, if you've got that experience, I kind of ask the question, who else is going to train the AI? Who else is going to bring that perspective? I wrote a piece the other day that talked about the movie Good Will Hunting, and how AI is kind of like the Matt Damon character, right? In the sense that he if people don't know the movie, he's out of jail, he's on probation, he's a kind of messed up kid, but this genius. And that's kind of AI right now on the whole. It's like it knows everything about everything, but it doesn't know what it doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right? And increasingly, I think the world needs people, and AI needs people who know how to contextualize it and humanize it. And I think that's part of what experienced whole picture strategy brings, is that it can look at all of the moving parts that have developed over the last 10 or 20 years and knows how to orchestrate them in maybe ways that sometimes the people who did those individual parts or were in those individual lanes don't always know, because they don't know what they don't know. But I have seen, Raj has seen, just by virtue of the amount of time that we've been in this business, have seen such a broad palette of things explode and develop, right? And part of what we've done working with large organizations is orchestrate all those things. And so AI gives us the opportunity to have a thought partner, a means of scaling, a way of kind of taking the heavy load tasks off of our plate, so we can focus on how do you bring the pieces together? How do you connect the dots? How do you find that kind of compelling insight or thing that just flips the way that you're thinking about the category?
Yeah.
Flips the way, or it's a whole new way of thinking about the brand or the customer that shakes things up enough to find a path toward growth.
Yeah, I love how it's used more as you're equipping yourself with a better armor suit that you've already leveled up on. Like if you're on level 200, you're wearing a level 200 armor suit, this is going to help you go to like level 300. That's kind of how I see it. But if you're trying to go from scratch and you have no idea what the hell you're doing, good luck, right? It's like when we teach people how to fish, right? Well, we want people to learn how to fish, but so that they can actually fish. But and in business terms too, right? But it is hard. But I think what is the easy part that you're saying is, again, the accelerator and the amplifier of being able to have different tentacles. And so I love that that ops team, the special ops team, and you're totally right. I think it just makes you so much stronger and so much more influential in the work that you're doing. I think the work that you're doing is really important, Jim. And the amount of different verticals and different industries that you have explored and keep on exploring. That's what I'm so interested in how a great mind like yours is able to amplify in ways that you can feel like you still have control of your practice. Because I think that is where I'm like really interested in the discipline of, it's like, okay, this is new world territory, but this is what I know because this is what I practice. Like you wouldn't want a doctor or a surgeon who took not even a class, of anything, and like for them to operate a knee surgery on you, you'd be like, get the hell out, right? Don't touch me. Right? Like you wouldn't want that person in the room. But I see it's the same as like brand surgery too. You would want someone who has the best interests of your brand, who understands that to do that is in the best interest of your customer. And it's not about, and the owners can change because you want them to feel like the brand can live beyond them. It's that growth, it's that scale, it's that legacy that it goes beyond. You want to exit, you want to increase the enterprise value. That's what brand and marketing does, is that. And so when you talk about how AI can really help and orchestrate all of that, I'm totally in alignment of that. And when it comes to AI as in, let's talk about quality though for a second. Because quality is where the expertise and the professionalism comes through. And I think I think people will learn along the way the cost of not understanding the value of getting the right people in the room to do the checks and balances and different perspectives, and just thinking, okay, that's good. But if you're not having a good community and support around you of the experts to have like, a second opinion, a third opinion, I think that's a troubling sign.
Yeah. I want to add that we're using this word brand, and I want to be careful because not everybody may meet that word at the same place.
Oh yeah, that is so true.
So it's probably a good idea to kind of define terms, and we probably should have done that early in the conversation. I think that when some people think about brand, they think about what they can see, right? They think about a brand as a logo, a brand as a tagline, a brand is advertising, a brand, right? I think that what we know from the world that we have lived in, is that people see that part of it, but actually a brand is like an iceberg. There's a lot that goes underneath that people don't see in the making of it. I think but it's really the larger part. It's the work that goes into what you see and what you experience that too often people try and shortcut, and so doesn't get to the right place or a place that can be sustained. And so the opportunity, when we're using the word brand, I mean, some of the ingredients that go into that when I'm thinking about what a brand is what is the business and what's the business trying to do, right? What do we have as an organization that recommends us? What's kind of in our arsenal of things that could create that unique DNA that or not even create it, but represents that unique DNA? What does the customer want and need? How do we understand that on a level of depth that's beyond just what they think themselves, but we know who they are and what they experience. We watch them, we pay attention to them, we learn what they do, and they don't always recognize it, but we will. Right?
Yeah. We are quite observer people, kind of people.
Marketplace, right? What does the marketplace look like? These are things that, and what does culture look like? And culture is interesting.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because when a lot of things aren't moving, culture is always moving. Culture is like this set of waves that are constantly rippling across the surface and creating both opportunity and risk, right? And so finding that right wave to surf can be part of your answer if you know who you are, you know what your customer needs, you understand the nature of your marketplace, and you find that right wave to surf, or that set of waves. I mean, it's probably not just one, but it's like, but you know the waves to take and the waves not to take. There can be you can really create a lot of great energy that way. We talk about that flywheel effect. Nothing gets that flywheel going like cultural things that we're all experiencing out in the world, and this is the answer to it, is somehow your brand or your marketplace. That's huge. So finding the right answers about culture and understanding culture and how people experience it and stuff. That was the magic with Popeyes. You gave that example earlier of the
Yeah.
Popeye chicken sandwich, and in culture, that was really a story about understanding your customers and what they really wanted that you weren't giving them. Popeyes failed 20 some odd times at driving a quick chicken sandwich through their system. It was failure after failure, but you learn. And we hit a moment in culture where people really, they love the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich, which dominates that market, but they didn't want it to win. That they wanted Popeyes to win. They wanted a David to take on the Goliath. Right? And so, I mean, that was all about finding the right place, the right moment in culture where it was the only place, at that point it was Twitter, it was the only place that Popeyes could win against a much, much larger and more well-equipped competitor who owned that marketplace.
I don't know why this just popped in my head, Jim, but like I feel like you should have a go with Whataburger. Like,
Whataburger is a great brand here in Texas. Yeah,
it's so amazing. Like, there's such a following. Oh my god, I have incredible. I think the story there's quite a story there. But for Popeyes, like back to Popeyes for a second, it's that business, even from a business standpoint, they failed so many times, but they kept on trying. That's like, and for them to hit it big, like you were saying earlier, like the lottery ticket, that's kind of what it kind of is. And that's the same thing, I think, with like VCs in their portfolio of companies as well. They're banking on one of three, out of the 15 companies that they've invested in to make it big. And so it's kind of interesting in how you're able to share this experience. And with Popeyes, when people, the failure part is so important, because to me, like, that's just all data and information. It's information that like actually helps, not with the detour, it actually helps narrow in what not to do. And then going back into like, what is brand? What does brand actually mean? If you're not living and breathing and selling I think lifestyle, not living a lifestyle business, but you're selling a lifestyle like Coca-Cola, it's kind of like, what are you actually doing? And I think that's always been the greatest part of the brand storytelling, and the byproduct or outcome, and when the excitement comes through, when they walk through a distribution channel, whether it's retail in person or in that moment where they're on their phone or they're on their laptop and a friend shared with them, like, oh my God, a specific product, why don't you use this? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about XYZ. I would just share one that just happened this morning, actually. I had a conversation with my mentor yesterday, Dave Lewis, and a now good friend who was on the podcast recently, Brad. And we were talking about mountain biking, Brad Silverberg, and we're talking about mountain biking. And then this morning, we're talking about cameras for the mountain bike. And I was like, it would probably be really good if you have a camera, so then like if any incidents happen, something to think about, so you don't have to feel like you have a memory guesswork situation happening. And so we're talking about the three, top vendors, so like Insta360, GoPro, and Garmin, and he had like all the deets down of like specifically Garmin, so we're sharing like the different links of what this is. And it's more about, in that moment, I was like, so did you buy it yet? He's like, I bought half of it already. I was like, well, you're halfway there. And so that's the kind of, the relevancy, I think, of like, and Dave is also a huge Garmin avid. He also mountain bikes. So there's like this sharing and feeling like this relevancy of a specific niche, because Garmin's only they were able to pivot in their way that is very specific for serious bikers and riders, cyclists. And so I'm just like, wow, Garmin has really come a long way. And I mean, I remember Garmin like during MapQuest days, and so I'm just like, wow. And I've really had this is what I wanted to get back to. When people are like, I don't understand strategy, right? And it's just like, if you just step outside for a second and think about how you spend your money, just go to your transactions. What was the last freaking thing that you bought? I don't care. Food, utilities, don't care, right? Whatever that is. What made you buy that? And just think about yourself as a consumer. There's sometimes, Jim, when I feel like some things get so overly complex, whether it's a huge focus group, and it's just like you're so in on the marketing side of it, but you just step outside for a second. How are you consuming things? Remembering to be in the shoes of a consumer. What was that customer experience? You buy shit online all the time. Like, you buy things with your credit card. You have things already set in your Apple Pay. All these things, right? That makes it really easy for these transactions. So the question of it's like you have to reinvent the wheel does not exist. It exists, like money is flowing all the time. And so it's more about, what are the frictions that these consumers or wanting to be a consumer that they can't access to you. They want to be able to try your stuff out. They would love to refer it to their friends. They would love to have a discussion with their friends about it. But like, how do they do that if you don't offer the environment for them to be able to participate?
Right. And you can fuel that in certain ways. There are lots of ways to do that. Your question is actually making me remember why I got into this in the first place, and it is listening to customers, right? So and just kind of a quick aside, when I was a child, when I was a teen, my grandparents owned a diner in Princeton, New Jersey, right?
No way.
And it was a diner right near the university, and it brought in people of all sorts of walks of life. And as a kid, I was fascinated by what customers chose, what they ate, what they were doing, again.
Wait, Jim, you're a restaurant kid too?
I am a restaurant kid too.
Oh my God! I didn't know that.
So what I did see is, we're all kind of, when we're young, we're looking for our place in the family. What do we do? Everybody around me is working really hard. How can I work hard?
Yeah.
Right. How can I do that too? And in addition to washing dishes, I would go out and take a tape recorder and sit down just out of nowhere at the table with customers. And I would ask them if it was okay if I turned the tape recorder on, and I would tape record conversations with them, asking about what they were eating that day, what the experience was like, all of that sort of thing. And I wound up having, scores of these kind of cassette tapes of people who were eating at the restaurant and why they were doing what they were doing. And I would secretly kind of go back to the kitchen. There was a table, and I had an uncle who was a cartoonist, and I would draw cartoon testimonial ads and put them up all over town. Right? So that's actually how I trace getting into this is like nobody in my family of entrepreneurs was listening to customers in the same way that I was, and could amplify that out to the world. And that became my role.
Holy crap!
Right. It's kind of weird. And then years later, I found this discipline called account planning, where people were listening. I think I read an article one time where people were listening to customers, women, as they were getting their hair done. And
yes,
it was different, right? And how personal and how interesting the experience was. One of the first brands that I worked on was Pantene shampoo, and I would stand there and listen to women about how they got their hair done.
No way.
Yes. What does it feel to walk out of a salon, right? What is that experience like? And this is all just a way of saying that, really truly listening to your customers is such an important thing. And part of listening to your customers are things they can tell you. And part of the listening to your customers is something they can't tell you, because maybe they're doing it subconsciously and don't know it themselves.
Right.
And so part of what we do in strategy is try and, unpack all of that. Try and, look at all of the pieces together through a number of different, whether it's research techniques or whatever. How do you unpack that and really kind of get to the core of what's going on?
Oh my gosh, Jim. Oh my God, I love this. Oh my gosh, I am fascinated. Oh my God. High five. Oh my God. That's amazing. Wow. You're the guy. You're the customer listener guy.
It's probably why I still love this. I'm 30 years into this
Yeah.
career, and it's part of why I still love it is because that landscape is constantly changing. It's never boring. It's always fascinating to listen to people or to understand people and kind of, get underneath what's actually going on. And again, culture is always changing. Brands are, and finding their uniqueness, finding their specialness is always changing. And the marketing landscape, good Lord, that has changed. Right? So
Novelty.
being able to fit those pieces together, right,
Yeah.
is again, it's constantly moving, and that's what makes it fun.
I really think it's novelty and it's charming. And I like the challenge, like you're saying too, in how you're seeing the challenge as fun and adventurous. And I do think, like, with everything that has changed, like whether it's every 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, the one thing I feel like everyone feels, or I think there's one thing that we cannot commoditize is brand. What would be left that would never be commoditized is actually brand. I don't know if you align on that, but like I really believe that you should be able to really think about how you're advocating yourself. And I really believe that sales is a operator and or owner up to $10 million in sales that you're able to really move forward and never really delegate that, because whoever is closest to the customer, oh my God, like you're the G, like you like,
And again, I want to come back to kind of defining the space when we're talking about brand, right? Because there's this notion that brand is something that we, the company, own. And that's actually not true, I think, in certain ways. When I think about what a brand is, I actually think, one of the most important places is what place it holds in people's minds. It's
yes,
right? It's a story about what's in people's heads. And so your brand is that gnarly mix of realities and perceptions and experiences and all of those things that kind of collectively equal your reputation or how they orient toward you.
okay,
right?
Jim, let's go into this for a hot second, because this is where, like, whether people can call it imposter syndrome or if it's like, I don't know, right? Like, and at the end of the day is like, how are people going to talk about you when you're not in the room? Whether that is in work, life, personal, like, how do you want to be remembered, right? And just from a human to human, like, do you want to be remembered that you were not very nice, or you were very rude, or, or whatever that case is? If that's your jam, then all right, whatever that is, right? The emotional wheel, there's a lot to it, but in the sense of you have the opportunity, like, I think we're living in the best era right now, Jim. Like, the opportunity to be able to narrate your story, to have the opportunity to narrate your story from your words, how you want to do it and however you want to distribute it. Like, now is the time. And like, not taking advantage of that, because social media is free right now, right? All the channels of social media is free. Like, that is your window shopping opportunity for people to have a movie trailer teaser about you, right? Like, I don't think things have changed over the time of like the tactics. I just think it looks different today. Yeah. And for brand, it's like, it's your reputation. It's someone who knows, likes, and trusts you. And so like when people are like, oh, I understand brand, I understand market, I'm like, you do it every day. You just did it today. You're doing it tomorrow. You did it yesterday. But it's like this association with this word. I'm so glad you bring this up about the definition of it, because they're doing it anyways. And so I don't know why there's such allergy, or if people feel like it's so allergic, maybe it just feels like intangible or something like that. Can you maybe explain or provide some light and color to that?
Yeah, one of the things I think about when people conjure the word brand, marketers or business people conjure the word brand, I think there's a fear of being too the same all the time, that it's going to be constrictive in some way, right? But I think if we think of ourselves as people, which we just did, and I know you and I have had many conversations about personal branding, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to start to think about a brand, is think about yourself as a brand, right? You're not the same person in every moment. You dial up based on context. If you're walking into a black tie event, you're not going to show up as in the same exact way as if you are going out in the backyard gardening, right? They're different contexts. And so what a thoughtful brand will do is give you levers that you kind of rotate back and forth in different contexts based on how and where and why you show up, that give you some flexibility around those things. And maybe one of those takes off. Maybe you become known as the person at those black tie parties, and that becomes a big part of your persona. Great, you can always grow that. But it doesn't mean you're not also in some moments going out in the backyard gardening, right? So it's figuring out what are those tracks, what are those levers that help you show up consistently in a way that is compelling, engaging, the you that you want to present, and the you that people are ready to say, yes, that's the C that's amazing, right? That's the CI experience, that kind of thing. So a brand well constructed gives you that ability not to be the same thing in every environment. And I think
you shouldn't be either. Like, we're all growing. What are we expecting? Someone to be the same like a year ago? Like, no, you want them to grow. You want them to have their personal best and like their whole entire potential.
But very often people like at a director level or below experience brand as something that is branding, meaning that I have to put this thing on my thing. Right, I have to put this logo, this tagline, it feels like something from elsewhere that's shoved into my bag of stuff that I didn't really necessarily want that to be there.
Bag of stuff.
No, did I say bag of shit? I think I did.
No, but like the bag of stuff is really, that's a great way to put it.
but it's branding when it's done in such a way that is very overly structured, feels oppressive.
Okay. Yeah, now we're getting to the meat of it. That would be an objection for sure. It's a objection of like, oh, it's supposed to feel natural. It's supposed to be free flowing. But there's an art and science in serving the customers so that when they're in that moment and they're trying to find out, because they're in that consideration point, if you don't have the information, they don't have the information enough to create an informed decision, you've lost. Right. And it's like, I don't know how to, again, I go back to, it's like, everyone here is a consumer. You buy things. We live in a capitalistic society. Money is our currency. And so look at it and see how you have made decisions on money, right? And so, and your decision on value. And I just think, like, if you can just step aside for a moment, think about that, remind yourself that you consume things too. I feel like there is it takes you away from this oppressive feeling, because it's kind of like, they're like, oh, for personas, right? You and I, we're very like, there's ideal customer profile, your ICP. And they're like, why do we have to revisit this all the time? Because you might have gone into a partnership and it may have blow up, like the Popeye situation, right? because it may have included new audiences that were never your customers before, or their persona has kind of changed because you helped them grow and evolve to change. And what a beautiful thing. And for that, if you have the wheels, the machine going, as in like the dishes in the air where you can be consistent, it's like you can then add and evolve that story. And I love when you talk about storytelling so much, Jim, because when we talk about storytelling and growth, it's not just growth in the personal brand and the person, but it's also growth in the business brand as well. And if you do not have a microphone to narrate that, then someone else is going to. So you can't complain for shit. Like it's on you, right? It is your responsibility to advocate and stand up for yourself, stand up for this incredible business and company and this brand that you have nurtured and stewarded and have put so much of your investment in. You know, being proud of like, man, we didn't work at Popeyes. It didn't work out this time. It didn't work out this time. We're going to try again and again and again. God, that's grit. That's freaking determination. That's resiliency. Oh my gosh. I love it.
It took a while to have all of the pieces together in the right moment, but the experience of knowing what we knew at that point really made it possible.
Yeah.
Right. So you could fail a whole bunch of times. The question is, are you learning from it? Are you, what are you picking up along the way that's going to help you do what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
And in that case, that was just an amazing team and an amazing time.
So now in Signal and Strain, tell me a little bit more. Like, tell me a little bit more about you and Raj. Like, how are you guys complementary? Or what do you think are the complementary strengths? And I'm so excited for this partnership for you. Congratulations, Jim. This seems so freaking you. And so, oh my God, I'm just so excited. Yeah, maybe Whataburger?
So I have a whole bunch of thoughts on this, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm just excitement. And part of the excitement is for the partnership, because Raj and I are both strategists that have done this for large brands and small at a fairly high level for a long time. And so there's, between the two of us, you'd be hard pressed to find a category that we haven't worked in multiple times. So between us, I think we've been doing this for like 50 years and something like that, but it feels like a blank to me. It's, at this point, it's just all stuff we know how to do. But what's neat about it is that because we're both strategists, we have this common language. And I think that's what we discovered over a few bottles of wine and lots of conversations and, that sort of thing. But I think we discovered just in talking about it, like we had the same problems with the industry, the way it was working, things that are kind of out there in the air. And so it gave us this moment to kind of talk about how things we thought should be done. And when you work for large organizations, especially, you wind up having, there are concessions that you have to make in what you believe and how you think and what you should do to be able to kind of work within a system. Right. And that can be working with other functional parts of the organization. That can be, challenges that have to do with what some organization wants to push or sell or drive toward the next quarter. Those sorts of things. And I think part of the excitement that we both discovered is that we get to create something the way we think it should be created based on our experience, plus the ability to do things with AI and other tools that are now available or kind of democratized that we weren't able to do as easily before.
Right.
And it kind of creates a whole new landscape where a special ops team of, it's not fancy. It's a couple guys figuring out what to do, but the palette has expanded in terms of what we can achieve relative to other choices in the market, and that's crazy. And we can do it without, big teams, overhead. We're not paying for real estate. We're working out of co-working spaces right now, and that's great for our model.
I love it.
I wouldn't want to have a physical location right now, maybe somewhere down the line, but that also means we can do things without passing that along to companies that we're working with, and that's cool. Right? So, we can basically give companies what has been an A team or two different A teams for very large clients, for very large organizations, doing it at kind of the top of the game, but we can serve that up in a way that anybody can use, right?
Yeah.
And that's exciting, to be able to do that, because for me, it makes it more personal. Like I don't, I've run many large teams of lots of different flavors of strategy we talked about
You
earlier.
really have.
And so it's been my job to kind of, how do all those fit together, and how do you synchronize all of that? But I now don't have to carry that for every job,
Yeah.
right? I can pick and choose the best of breed talent that we know works well with us. We created a system that makes it very easy for organizations that are partnering with us to plug in to deliver creative media, PR, those kinds of things that strategy shows up in, but people who share our values, people who share, our way of working in, that we know we work well with. And so I think so many of us have said over the years, like, I just want to do good work with people I enjoy working with. And now
Yeah.
it feels like we have that opportunity. So Raj is super smart in kind of creative ways of growth and business and that kind of thing, which I really appreciate. But I get to do the strategy stuff. I get to be close to the customers. I get to create the frameworks and the definitions and and work with people in a very kind of hands-on sort of way to build what they're trying to build, and that's fun.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you guys both. Like, there's so much you can offer to the world, and I love how, I mean, like your frameworks, Jim, it's not a template. Like, I wouldn't say it's a template because every single business is so different. And so the difference is when you're in the room and you're able to take all of these years of experience and able to, and I love it when they're like, oh, did you just like do that overnight? It's like, no, this was like decades of work. And it's the master, but that goes along with any other craft and skill. And so I do think it's like you're really working with people who value it, and you're working with people who just gets it, and that's the best kind of collaboration. That's the best kind of partnership in business that you want to be in. And I love how you and Raj have that same lexicon. You don't have to convince each other, what any of this stuff is. Like, you guys just get it. You guys can just go, right? And that is the adventure. So I've always seen you as a very adventurous person, Jim, probably from the sports side of it, our sports lingo. You're like, let's go, right? And that's what I love so much about you. And it's and I can trust you when you say let's go, because I know you mean it. And when and you're working with people, you have to trust that, they're going to follow through, follow back, right? Follow up. And you have all those qualities. And I really appreciate the communication side of you, Jim. And I've always have, like, you haven't changed a thing in the terms of that high bar and level of respect there. If anything, I just feel like you've gotten like from the level 200 to level 300. Just keep on going.
One of the nicest things that somebody ever said about me business-wise, and I hold it very dear, is that I care about the business as if I owned it, right? I think that's true because I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, like I talked about before, whether it's my father's real estate business or my mother's real estate business or my the diner or anything like that. I know how much that means to people. And so whether it's a large company or a small company, being part of that kind of energy, I take it very personally, I guess is the way I'd put it. And that's how I find a connection with it.
Yeah.
So
You steward it so
people
well.
work there. People work there, right? People depend on it. And so how do you make it the best version of what it can be? That's what I try to do.
Jim, you are a shining light. Thank you so much for sharing so much. I mean, you've dropped so many gems today. I'm so grateful we can do this. I mean, I've been trying to get you on, Jim, for ages. For ages. I am honored and privileged to have this time with you because it's a very difficult topic, brand and marketing. I think especially in high-level strategy, in understanding the return on investment for that, and understanding if your business is capable of moving forward with that or not even. And then looking inside the business completely. And you have really, really paved the way in articulating that. So that's one thing I incredibly respect you for. And I hope you do more. I hope to see you like around, everywhere. So I always learn from you, Jim. Like really, I can't thank you enough for our friendship.
I feel the same way. See, one thing that you just made very real for me, and I think that's the reason we sought each other out at a certain point, is that because strategy is so fluid, you really helped me get to a point where you, like, how do you activate it? How do you, like, I've done a lot of that kind of work, but I saw in you somebody that could really frame the activation and delivery part of strategy out, which is not an easy skill to master. So,
oh wow!
So I really appreciate your perspective in all of that, in kind of producing strategy.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. It's being a producer. I think the producing part is so hard, but I hope everyone becomes a producer. Honestly. Like, we need more producers than consumers. At the same time, we need consumers. It's like the Lyft model, right? It's like the network effect. Both is needed. But if there could be more producers, oh my gosh, I think it'd just be really great and a better understanding in this world for us to communicate with each other a little bit better. I think that would be really great. And be better decision makers too, as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Jim, thank you again for your time. Oh my God. I'm just like, I'm razzled. I'm razzled.
Okay. My pleasure, Steve. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.